As a kid, yeah. All a nigga wanna have was a Burberry scarf and $3 in my pocket. Instead I got beat with a switch, but I don't give a fuck, but it's on my body. Scars all up on me, but I run around from everybody. Life lesson learned, I better learn from this bitch, nobody. She pushed me around, she didn't give no motherfucks about it. She broke my heart 3 times, but I ain't getting...
Earlier today, Lamar Jackson made a guest appearance on the Rich Eisen show. And when he was on the Rich Eisen show, Rich Eisen asked him, "Hey Lamar, what is going on with the offense this year? Last year in 2019, it seemed like everything came easy for you guys offensively. This year, it looks like the offense is kind of struggling this year. What is the culprit for that?" And Lamar Jackson came out and said, surprisingly, that the opposing team's defense knows what's coming. There are instances this year that Lamar Jackson said that the opposing team's defense knows what the play call is, and they know where the play is going to go, and they're calling out the plays. They're saying, hey, run, or watch this, or watch him. So what that tells me is that Greg Roman has not really done a good job at continuing to adapt this offense and modify and change this offense. You see, I tell people this all the time. Football is more than just a game of brute strength where you go on, put a helmet and pads on, and try to knock the other team's opposing players down to the ground. Football is a mental game, and it is a game of strategy as well. And part of your job as being a head coach or offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator is putting your players in the right spots, in the right situations to succeed. So for Greg Roman last year, the Ravens had a credible offense because it was a unique offense that not a lot of people seen before. But during the offseason, a lot of teams have been watching film. A lot of defensive coordinators have been staying up at night trying to figure out how to stop this offense. Now, this past offseason, I said that I still think the Ravens are going to have a really dominant offense because Greg Roman should continue to adapt the offense and should continue to add new wrinkles to the offense. But what it seems like is that Greg Roman hasn't did that at all. It seems like this is the same offense from last year. And in the NFL, somebody's always watching. A wise man told me, an OG told me that, JT, the streets are always watching. What you do, somebody is always watching. And in the NFL, that's a similar situation. In the NFL, these coaches and these defensive coordinators are constantly watching what other teams are doing and trying to find out methods to stop what the opposing team is doing. So you have a Baltimore Ravens offense that still is running the same concepts and basically the same play calling that they did last year. And the offense hasn't really added nothing new. Nothing really new to the Ravens offense this year. And in the NFL, you have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to modify your offense. That's what separates the great head coaches in the NFL from the average head coaches in the NFL. The average head coaches in the NFL, they come out, they run what they run, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. The best head coaches in the NFL, like guys like Andy Reid, Sean Payton, are able to adapt their offenses and add new wrinkles to the offense that their offense just doesn't become so easy to figure out. So you have an instance in Baltimore that you have to give a lot of the blame to Greg Roman because this falls on him. As the offensive coordinator, you have to continue to add new wrinkles to your offense so your offense doesn't become too predictable. Because when you don't add new wrinkles to your offense, you get the situation that you're in right now. Now, here's the good thing if you are a Baltimore Ravens fan about the situation. Even though teams may know your plays and they may be in the proper spots to stop those plays, they still might not still be able to stop you because you're just that dominant of a football team offensively because you have a guy like Lamar Jackson who's just so hard to stop. Even if you know where the play is going, it's still hard to stop because Lamar Jackson is just that great of an athlete. But eventually after this season, you're going to have to make some changes and you're going to have to make some adjustments to your offense. Because next year, being a great athlete isn't going to bail out the Baltimore Ravens anymore. It is going to be the third year that Lamar Jackson is going to be a full-time NFL starter. And under Greg Roman, if changes don't get made, then the Ravens offense will continue to struggle going into next season. Now, as far as this season goes, you still have a good chance to, still run the offense that you've been running for the last year or so and still have success, even though you may not have success you had offensively this season that you had back in 2019 last year, the year Lamar Jackson won MVP. But next year in year 3, under Greg Roman, if he still remains offensive coordinator, things drastically have to change. And maybe Greg Roman did plan on adding some new ranks to the offense because, we had the big pandemic that went on and we didn't even know we were going to have an NFL season this year. So maybe that was a reason why Greg Roman wasn't able to adapt the offense. Who knows? But if the Ravens don't do something in the offseason to address the predictability of this offense, then they're going to be in a lot of trouble offensively next season. I don't think they're in all that much bad shape this season because they're still so better of a football team. The majority of the teams that they play, they have one of the easiest schedules in the NFL this year. But eventually, there's going to come a time when the play calling is going to get to the fact that it's just too predictable and you're not going to have any success offensively. And it doesn't matter how good of an athlete that Lamar Jackson is, because being a good athlete can only bail you out for so long. That's why a lot of people called out the Baltimore Ravens offense for saying it was a gimmicky offense. It was a high school, college-like offense. It works in high school and college because you can dominate at the college and the high school level by just being faster and stronger than everybody else. But in the NFL, everybody's strong. Everybody's just as fast. Players are smarter. If they're not as athletically gifted as you, they'll be able to outsmart you. They'll be able to take certain angles. Get what I'm saying? So for Baltimore, things have to change. And the change doesn't have to be this week or next week, but change has to happen soon for the Baltimore Ravens offensively. Because if teams are figuring out your offense, imagine what's going to happen next year when teams know what you're going to do. So this isn't really uncommon in the NFL. Teams do have certain plays that they tend to gravitate to. They do have certain concepts, certain tendencies that they tend to gravitate to. Like the Patriots have concepts that they really like a lot, that they run more than any other team. It's the Rams who have concepts and plays that they like to run a lot against certain teams. And certain teams can pick up to those tendencies and plays. That's why in the NFL you have to mix up your play calling. But Greg Roman's play calling has been called out by a lot of Baltimore Ravens fans so far this season, and a lot of other teams. We aren't the only ones. You see, a lot of people as fans think that we're just fans. We're just on the outside looking in. We don't know what's really going on. But if we know what's going on, I'm pretty sure other teams know what's going on as well. And that's a problem because as a fan and as a neutral spectator of the game, you shouldn't be able to predict what your favorite team's offense is going to do. That is a bad thing. Okay, it may look good for Tony Romo to do it because Tony Romo has more years of playing the game of football than me and a lot of you guys watching combined. He's played at a high level as a starting NFL quarterback. So a guy like him being able to predict what's going to happen from time to time is acceptable. But as fans, when we know what's coming and when we're able to predict the play calling, trust and believe the defense on the field knows what's coming as well. So that's not a good thing when you're a fan of your favorite team and you can predict what your favorite team's offense is going to do. Because if you can't predict what's going to happen, then the opposing team's defense is going to be able to predict what's happening. So for the Ravens, I still think that this offense isn't going to struggle as bad as people may overreact to this and say that it is. But at the end of the day, the Baltimore Ravens have to make some changes offensively. They have to modify this offense, and they have to continue to adapt this offense because in the NFL, you cannot continue to stay the same. You have to continue to adapt. You have to continue to evolve because the game of football is constantly evolving. The game of football is constantly changing. Eventually, there's going to be guys like Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson that teams are going to be able to have a counter reaction to that. What is going to be the counter reaction to guys like Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and all these true dual threat quarterbacks that are entering the NFL? Well, here's the counter reaction to that. Bringing in faster guys on the defensive line, having more Aaron Donalds, having more Chase Young, having more guys on the interior of the defensive line that may not be as big, but can run a 4'5" or a 4'6" at 280 or 290 pounds. And for those of you guys who aren't familiar with this Batman reference, if you guys watch Batman Begins, okay, at the end of Batman Begins, Jim Gordon hands Batman the Joker card. And before he handed Batman the Joker card, he talked about escalation. He said that we start toting automatics, they start toting semi-automatics. Batman wears a mask. He's out there fighting crime as a vigilante. There's going to be vigilante villains that pop up. So that's escalation. So what is escalation in the NFL for how teams are going to try to counteract dual threat quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson? Well, the answer to that is by bringing in faster players on the defensive line. So the Baltimore Ravens offense is too predictable. And if they don't change it, then they're going to get to a point that they're going to suffer offensively. You thought the Baltimore Ravens offense kind of had a big drop-off compared to where they were in 2019. Imagine what's going to happen in 2021 if Greg Roman or whoever's the offensive coordinator for Baltimore isn't able to adapt and modify this offense.